Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the worst 15 brawlers inside of the game right now and the best ways to buff them. So I've got a couple of recent comments on my stream saying, why do you never do the worst brawlers in the game video anymore? Well, a lot of it is because a lot of the bad brawlers are just typically have been bad for a very long time. So it's like, why would I keep repeating myself? But I thought maybe a good idea is to talk about balance changes, how to make them a little bit better. So let's just jump into it. With Colt, he is being incredibly power crept. One big reason is because when his hypercharge first got released, he was one of the few brawlers that got a hypercharge first, so he was just good for that reason. He also had a reload speed buff that just made him better overall, but now pretty much every brawler has a hypercharge. He's been incredibly power crept. He's just outdated. That's a sad story with a lot of the old generation of brawlers, just like myself. They're getting washed up. They need to hit a retirement home. But with Colt, I think a couple of reasons. One of them is actually he's got a bug with both star powers, which it's making him that much worse. But I still even think without these bugs, he would be one of the worst brawlers inside of the game. I just think maybe one thing that's outdated is his super. I know a lot of people won't want to change Colt. He's a very OG brawler and he has a lot of fans. He's still one of the most played brawlers, but he's terrible. Maybe making his super movable, just like, you know, Amber's main attack. So, you know, if you whiff your super completely, maybe you can move it like with your aim stick rather than just with your movement with your left analog stick, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I don't know. I was trying to come up with like a few ideas. Another idea would maybe just buff the super damage, but lessen the projectiles, so it makes it more so, because you know with Colt, right, his super projectiles deal less damage than his main attack. Why not actually make it a bit more impactful? Because again, like, it's a lot easier just to spam out your main attack and get more consistent damage on his super. So yeah, another problem is his hypercharge is terrible as well. So there's just a lot of things making Colt very outdated. So we have Rosa. So Rosa is struggling a lot in a lot of metas, actually. I think the entire year she's not really been that usable, and the main reason is because she just feeds so many brawlers hypercharges, which then just go on to like team wipe. There's just so many assassins and tanks that just have that capability, and Rosa just doesn't really have that. So I'm not saying to give her a broken hypercharge, but she needs a way to probably like lessen the gap, you know, when she's trying to chase after people. I think people can just escape her too easily. So maybe I don't know how can we actually buff this. I just don't know. She's such a difficult brawler because again, she's like a noob stomper, easy to use, and a lot of these lower rarity brawlers will always forever be like that. If I don't want to make Rosa the best brawler in the game like she was upon release, so I'd probably suggest changing her healing star power so it makes her, I don't know, something a little bit different. Maybe it just heals more. Maybe you can like rework it to have more of a speedy style power, so she's faster and ground. I don't know. I know that's what the speed gear does, but it needs to either be more healing in her kit or some type of speed. One of the worst brawlers in the game has to be Grom, but for a lot of the casuals, or even worse than casuals, they actually think that Grom is one of the best brawlers in the game. Funny enough, I always just get these type of comments on my tier list, but Grom has a big problem in pro play. It is just because his main attack is just so easy and predictable. You're just never going to get hit by it at that maximum distance. But Grom's a weird one because I personally don't mind it when a brawler hasn't been meta for a long time, because Grom is very, very toxic when he's meta because of his range, and he's just really hard to, of course, counter a brawler that has such high range. And then if he can also compete with brawlers up close to him, and how are you ever going to counter him? Of course, that's Grom's biggest weakness, by getting close to him and being aggressive. That's the same story with a lot of throws like Sprout, but I do suggest just literally making it slightly faster for his shots to land at closer range. Like, I'm talking like 0.1, 0.2 of a second, and just slowly bump this up till it feels a bit better, because I just think the biggest problem is he gets overwhelmed so easily, and he just literally can't hit people close to him. Next brawler we have on this list is Penny, and 2 and 14 in Penny. Yeah, I was early to that trend. Maybe Penny was always trash when I used her back then. Anyway, yeah, Penny has fallen off. She's fallen off a cliff, and one reason is because the hypercharge takes a long while to get, but hypercharge was never that good anyways. But I don't want Penny to be completely dependent on her turret. In previous metas, it's pretty much all been about her turret getting pressure for her. I think everyone's been asking for a Penny damage buff, which I wouldn't mind it, because a lot of brawlers are just getting damage buffs and it's just leaving Penny in the dust. But maybe that's gonna allow her to be too strong. I don't know. I would personally just buff this damage and see where she lands, because with Penny, a big reason is just simply being power crept. With a lot of new brawlers coming out, like Lumi, for example, Lumi's just really good at control and can literally click her green button and she has instant control. Whilst Penny, she has to wait for a turret. It takes a long time to charge, slow reloads, but you get what I mean. And then you've also got, if you want brawlers that pierce, you've just got better piercing brawlers like Amber. You've got better piercing brawlers like Jae Young. It's just a lot more consistent that way. Penny's just falling off in terms of power, being power crept. Maybe they could buff her hypercharge rate. I don't know. There's a lot of ways to buff Penny, but she's just fallen off for a while. Next up, we have Chuck. So Chuck has been a big problem in the game for a very long time. It makes me think, are they cooking up a Chuck rework anytime soon? I think it was clear as soon as Chuck came out. Like, he was a fun, very unique brawler, but everyone knew about the heist gimmick literally on day one. And is that healthy for the game? I don't really know. I've never really liked Chuck for that reason, of just being able to deal so much damage to the high safe or just non-brawlers. So I don't know whether they can change one or two things. Maybe what they could do is remove the damage from... I don't know who mentioned it. I think it was Carnage. I can't remember off the top of my head, but that would be a good idea. But then buff his kit in another way. Maybe make it so he's a bit more flexible in terms of being able to throw his posts, like his superchargers a bit quicker. I don't know. Or, I think the main one, actually, I would like is just to buff his main attack. It sounds really simple and boring, but his main attack is one of the worst inside of the game. It's so inconsistent. It's so small as well. We know about small things around here. But yeah, Chuck, he needs a main attack buff. Whether it's to make a bigger projectile, more damage, just more consistent, more clouds within his main attack. Give him some main attack damage power, please. It's next, and I believe she's quite easily, I would say, a bottom 20 brawler in the game, maybe even bottom 15. But I just wanted to talk about Klette because it seems like nobody talks about her anymore, which is not even that viable inside of Heist. There's a couple of reasons. One big reason is that Klette just can't two-shot and super any brawler in the game anymore. That used to be her whole gimmick when she came out, right? You could tap 2 shots, super, dead. 2 shots, super, dead. And you'd just be able to get some really good kills on tanks. Well, lo and behold, of course, you got the shield gear that was introduced a couple of years ago, whatever, but you've also got hypercharges with the big stat buffs. Even just that 5% extra shield can stop her from doing her 2 attack and super combinations. So yeah, it's pretty much killed her in that sense in terms of a tank counter, but I think maybe like a damage buff. I don't know what implications that would actually have on because the way her attack works is very, I don't know, numbers wise weird. Yeah, I just can't wrap my head around it, but I think a damage buff would be nice, so she can get 2-shot in and super in opponents a lot easier. I would personally go with that because that was the whole reason why I liked Klette upon her release. So in the bottom 15 we have Jessie. So Jessie's quickly became like a bottom 5 brawler inside of the meta. One big reason is because, again, she was pretty good when hypercharges first came out because she had a super fast charge rate and not a lot of brawlers had hypercharges. So literally for that reason alone she was meta, but outside of that, yeah, she's not that good as a standalone brawler. So there's a couple of reasons why I really want Jessie to get some type of rework. Again, Shocky, I mean, randoms and 10k trophy players, they love Shocky, but I just think it's never been used competitively even once. I think they just need to rework it, honestly. There'll probably be a lot of angry 10k Jessie mains, but then again, they probably won't even realize it's being reworked. So I'd actually like it to affect her main attack. So one big problem with Jessie is that she's way too dependent on her turret, which actually takes a long time to charge up as well. Why not have something in her star powers or gadgets that actually revolves around her main attack, or just something other than her turret? Because both gadgets and both star powers are literally dependent on her turret. But if it takes so long to get because her main attack is so hard to hit, well, what's the point in that? You get what I mean? Also, they could just literally lower the damage drop off whenever a shot bounces. Of course, this might make her a little bit too strong at lower trophy levels, but let's face it, too many things are being done for the casuals now. Let's give some buffs for the competitive players, please. Is next on the list, and again, Pam's another brawler which I've just been thinking, well, she's just been outdated for a long time. They're probably going to be cooking up a rework, I don't know, soon. Like, it's been years, it feels like she's been outdated for. A hypercharge could bring some life to her. I don't know, but one big thing about her that I've just noticed from time to time is definitely her unload speed. So her unload speed, so I'm talking about when you shoot out your main attack and then it just takes forever for all of her bolts to fly out. I think that just makes her too easy to counter. There's just so many brawlers that are just really quick and just can pack a punch really fast, whilst Pam, sometimes, you know, you miss an attack and then you're screwed, right? Because you're just waiting for her whole attack to unload and you're like, okay, now I'm dead by the time someone's got close to me. Right, so I think they should pretty much just buff her unload speed maybe, or they could definitely, in terms of reworking her, make her just shoot more bolts out so she deals more damage. Something needs to happen with her main attack because I just think it's way too hard to get consistent damage with her. Next up we have the old man Gale, and with Gale, he's a brawler that I think personally, again, I don't really want him to ever become strong in the meta. We've had multiple Gale metas now. Like back in my day, when was it, 2021, 2020, whenever there was a Mr. P Gale surge meta, it was one of the worst metas of all time, literally all time. You couldn't counter, like when Gale becomes good, he counters regular brawlers and he hyper counters assassins and tanks, so they just literally can't do anything. So we don't want him buffed too much. So I would suggest maybe like a small buff to his super damage. I don't know what to suggest, because if we're buffing his super charge rate, that just might make him too anti-tank, but maybe that's his whole need. I don't know. Yeah, I don't mind Gale being bad. So we have Sam, so another washed up brawler, and to me, I think Sam is screaming for a rework as well. I just don't understand Sam in this meta. He has a completely broken hypercharge, completely broken. They could probably do with reworking his hypercharge so it isn't that broken, but then buffing his hypercharge rate. I've been speaking about this since his hypercharge got released, but I think Sam, plain and simple, needs a rework. What kind of rework? I'll probably have to do a video on that in the future maybe, because I just don't really have much of an idea right now. But let's face it, like his other star power remote recharge is just never been used since his release. His whole, I do like his play style, but now I just think there's too many brawlers that will just destroy him too easily in terms of the way you play, and he's very confusing for the average player to understand. So I feel like Sam probably will get reworked. So for the worst brawler list, we have Fang, and Fang, again, for the average player, seems to be pretty good. I have been saying for a very long time, when Fang was first released with his hypercharge, that I never want his hypercharge to be strong again, but I don't even think his hypercharge is that great anymore, to be honest. I think buffing his hypercharge rate would be nice. It's a little bit of a toxic hypercharge, yes. Maybe you could remove his popcorn that he leaves behind, but buff his hypercharge rate, so at least like he can go for walls, because just that mechanic on it is insane. So maybe just, yeah, remove the popcorn trail, buff his hypercharge rate, and see where it lands. So Maisie, the one brawler that I just think the entire region of NA just overrating crazily. Like tier lists are putting Maisie in the B tier still, and it isn't even Bobby this time. Like, hello, what is going on? Anyways, Maisie, I think it's quite clear that I think most people will agree that Maisie feels okay when you're just playing ladder, right? Because people don't move around, they don't juke her attacks at all. But pros, they've not been using Maisie all year because it's just too hard to make her work, especially with such an aggressive meta with just so many hypercharges that get stat, speed boost, etc. So Maisie does need a rework. I actually would really like one rework to her super. So I've just been thinking for a long time, well, Maisie's only good and dependent on her gadget and super combination. Like, it's a really cool combination, but what if they just built her super to have a dash like automatically? Why can't she just dash and super? That'd be really cool, right? It reminds me of Mina, where she has a little dash and then her third attack then shoots out. Why not have a delay with the super after the dash? I would really like that with Maisie, because then they could focus on maybe reworking her kit a little bit in terms of like both gadgets. Like her other gadget, if it's finished them, it's just terrible and hasn't really been good for a while, well, ever since release. Her dash gadget is just completely needed, so if we're removing something that's completely needed, put it in her base kit, I think that's a good way to fix a pretty terrible brawler, right? Next up on the bottom 15 list, we have Pearl, and this just feels criminal to say, because since Pearl's release, she's been a consistent B tier brawler, consistently someone that's been underrated by a lot of people, always good in knockout and bounty, but boy, I haven't seen a Pearl in like 4 or even 6 months at this rate. A big reason is of course the hypercharge. Every brawler's a hypercharge, hers is completely and utterly useless, the worst hypercharge inside of the game, so that would be a first instance in terms of buff. But we've been speaking about that for a while. I was just thinking as well, yeah, if they didn't want to do that because they've not been touching hypercharges for whatever reason, they could just simply make it so she heats up faster. I think, again, like an aggressive meta. I was playing Pearl a little bit and I was just like, I'm just never getting to maximum heat ever. Even in knockout and bounty, I'm struggling to get to maximum heat because people are just being more aggressive. They can just afford to push into Pearl now, especially since her gadget, the fire gadget, just doesn't rip through people. Remember, guys, when the fire gadget would just literally one-shot so many brawlers, you never would want to approach Pearl. Now you can just approach a Pearl because she doesn't actually feel like she does that much damage. So yeah, let's buff her heat or buff her minimum damage. I would like one of the two things. Now moving on to El Primo. So I feel like no one really talks about El Primo. I never really see in the comments section, so everyone just forgot about him. I am someone that's definitely forgotten about him because I don't even see him in Brawl. I would always consistently put Primo in like C or D tier because I'd see the pros, they'd always like to go Primo because he's a good goal scorer. Well, lo and behold, since 4-6 months ago, we've had so many new broken hypercharges that can just score goals in itself. So I feel like Primo has lost that goal scoring capabilities. He's also lost the tank that could counter other tanks kind of gimmick about him. I don't think he does that job nowhere near as much, nowhere near as well. So maybe they could buff his supercharge rate a little bit. That could help him against other tanks. But I had to actually like a buff to his hypercharge. I feel like a criminal saying this, but do you guys remember? I think it was in the Brawl talk when it first got released. I was like, okay, Primo is gonna break the game. Like a bigger hypercharge super, that's gonna be so good. And then it came out, I'm like, oh, this is terrible. Why not buff his hypercharge super a little bit? I don't mind that, right? Because I think the older idea with hypercharges, I didn't mind them just being a bit bigger and just a little bit better than their original super. I think this will be a nice change. Moving on to the final brawler on this list, I have gone with Clancy. So Clancy, for some reason, isn't in the B tier in Humble's tier list. I think that's definitely an oversight. Yeah, Clancy can be used as like a late pick into some brawlers on Hot Zone. And that's probably about it. I think that's the only way to use him. But I would actually like, I've been using him a fair bit, mainly because people are trolling me on streams and I'm having to go stupid brawlers. But I think the big one would actually be like a health buff. I would like a health buff because I think you can make some good plays with Clancy with the dash gadget if you had a bit more health. I feel like whenever I'm dashing, I'm just pretty much dead before I can even unload my super. So why not buff him like 600 in health? That just means he has more survivability, more time per life to try and get his tokens up. This would be a great buff in my opinion. So that's going to be it, guys. Hope you enjoyed a bit more of a thorough explanation in terms of buffs this time around. Just thought I'd give a bit more opinions on things. But yeah, that's going to be it. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.